Marcus had a gift most people lost somewhere along the grind of adulthood. He saw people. Really saw them. And right now, while the rest of downtown Chicago streamed past like ants in Armani, he was the only one who noticed her. The clock on his cracked phone screen glared at him. 23 minutes until the Callaway scholarship deadline. 23 minutes between him and a life sentence of poverty. Rain sheeted down in cold silver ropes. An elderly white woman stood abandoned on the curb, her cashmere coat sagging heavy with water, streaks of blood sliding down her temple. She reached for the streetlight like it was a lifeline, but missed, swaying like a brittle branch in a storm. 3 businessmen cut around her, polished shoes never slowing. A woman on her phone veered off, muttering like her day had no space for someone else's tragedy. Marcus's gut twisted. His mother's voice echoed like gospel. "You get one shot at breaking out, baby. Don't waste it." 3 blocks away, Salvation waited behind the glass doors of the scholarship office. Just 3 blocks. Then the woman whispered, trembling, fragile. "Please, can someone help me? My grandson's waiting at Calvert Tower." Another suit brushed her shoulder, never glancing back. She teetered, knees buckling. Marcus didn't think. He launched forward, arms catching her before the pavement did. The price hit immediately. His leather-bound portfolio crashed into a gutter puddle, paper soaking, ink bleeding into nothing. Months of essays, recommendations, transcripts, dissolving like sugar in dirty water, his future melting on the sidewalk. "Thank you, young man," the woman breathed. Her blue eyes flickered sharp for a second, startling him. "I seem to have lost my way." That's when the security guard stormed over, hand hovering too close to his holster. The man's gaze flicked between Marcus's dark skin and the frail white woman in his arms. His jaw tightened, his eyes hardened. "Step away from the lady," he barked. Marcus squared his shoulders. Rain plastered his hoodie to his chest, but his voice carried firm, unshaken. "She needs medical attention." The guard's lips curled. "And respect. Something you people seem fresh out of today." Radio crackled in his hand. Scholarship deadline, 19 minutes. His ruined application bled onto the sidewalk. Marcus made another choice, as costly as the first. He didn't run. Because some things weighed heavier than scholarships. Some things carved your name into the world. Southside Chicago. 2-bedroom apartment. 4 souls bound together by grief and grit. His mother, Loretta, killing herself with double custodian shifts at the hospital. Grandma Elise, slipping further into dementia every week. Zora, 12 years old and already outthinking half the professors in her science textbooks. And the shadows. A father buried after a construction accident. A brother, Dion, caged for a charge that would have been a slap on the wrist for anyone else. Every morning, Marcus rose at 5 a.m., helped Grandma Elise choke down her meds, then caught 2 buses across the city to West Ridge Academy, where out of 200 students, only 7 were black. He'd earned his place with brilliance and grit, but every hallway whispered, every teacher's pause reminded him he didn't belong. Mr. Harrington, the college counselor, never even bothered to hide it. The look that said Marcus's future was a pipe dream. And now, with his papers melting into a puddle, that dream might already be gone. Harvard might be a stretch, Washington. Have you considered community college? Nothing wrong with working with your hands. Mr. Harrington's voice still echoed in Marcus's skull like a curse. As if a 4.0 GPA, 2 buses every morning, weekend shifts at the grocery store, and carrying half his family on his back still wasn't enough. Today was supposed to prove them all wrong. The Callaway Foundation scholarship, $250,000, his golden ticket to Harvard, his escape hatch, his chance to rewrite his family's story. Instead, his essays, months of sweat and sleepless nights, now bled out in muddy Chicago puddles while he steadied a stranger who could barely stand. Marcus guided the elderly woman into a warm cafe, the security guard's eyes still burning suspicion into his back. His chest was tight, panic clawing up his throat. Every tick of the clock was another nail in his dream's coffin. The barista looked straight past him. "Can I help you, ma'am?" The woman's voice cut sharp. "This young man is helping me. He's the only person who stopped." She dabbed at her forehead with a napkin, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Marcus finally introduced himself. She smiled faintly. "Margaret Callaway." The name hit like a sledgehammer. Callaway. His stomach dropped. The irony was too cruel. He had sacrificed his one shot at the Callaway Foundation scholarship to rescue Margaret Callaway herself. "My late husband started the foundation," she added softly. "My grandson runs it now. Bradford." When he explained his ruined deadline, Margaret's eyes blazed with sympathy. She pulled out her phone, calling her grandson on the spot. Marcus could hear Bradford's voice, cold, clipped, and loud enough to sting. "Grandmother, we can't make exceptions. It undermines integrity. If he can't meet a simple deadline, he's hardly Harvard material." Margaret's shoulders sagged as she hung up. "I'm sorry, dear. Bradford can be rigid." Marcus forced a thin smile. "No need, Mrs. Callaway. My mom raised me to help people no matter the cost." But outside the cafe window, his future blew apart in real time. Soggy pages scattering in the gutter like confetti for the death of his dream. His phone buzzed. "Mom. How did it go, baby? Did you submit on time?" Marcus tucked it away. He couldn't answer. Not yet. As he helped Margaret into a taxi bound for her grandson's office, a police cruiser slid up. 2 officers stepped out, their hands already grazing their weapons. "Is this kid bothering you, ma'am?" Before Marcus could speak, Margaret rose taller than he'd ever seen her. Her frail voice snapped with authority. "This young man saved me when dozens walked past. He gave up an important appointment to protect me, and you're harassing him? Badge numbers, now." The officers faltered, backpedaling fast, but the damage was already carved into Marcus's chest. He'd felt it too many times before, the weight of being a threat first, a person second. As the taxi pulled away, Margaret pressed a business card into his palm, her personal number scribbled on the back. "This isn't over, Marcus Washington. I pay my debts." He didn't let himself believe it. People like the Callaways rarely upset the systems that fed them. So he walked to the bus stop in the rain, rehearsing the hardest speech of his life. That evening, the tiny apartment filled with the rich, spicy aroma of his mother's jambalaya, the same recipe his grandmother had brought from Louisiana. Normally it was comfort. Tonight, Marcus barely tasted it. He told them everything. His mother's eyes dimmed, but her voice stayed firm. "You did the right thing, Marcus. That woman needed help." "The right thing cost us everything, Mom." Loretta set down her spoon, cupped his face in her calloused hands. "Listen to me. Your father and I didn't raise you to walk past someone hurting because it was inconvenient. That scholarship would have opened doors, yes, but selling your soul to get through them? That's too high a price." Marcus nodded, but the weight pressed down harder. Kindness had cost him his future. 2 weeks crawled by. Nothing from Margaret. The Callaway Foundation released its list of recipients. Marcus's name wasn't on it. That night, he found his mother in the kitchen, shoulders trembling as she wiped her face quickly when he walked in. She whispered to no one. "He deserved it. He deserved better." Marcus said nothing, because she was right. "It's okay, Mom," Marcus said, forcing his voice steady. "I can still go to state. I'll work, take loans, figure it out." Loretta's hands trembled as she wiped her eyes. "You deserve better, baby." At Westridge, Mr. Harrington leaned back in his chair, smugness dripping like stale cologne. "Sometimes these reach schools just aren't meant to be. Washington, no shame in setting more realistic goals." Marcus clenched his fists under the desk. He had the grades, the test scores, the sacrifice. But Harrington's words made it clear it was never about numbers. It was about him. That afternoon, the rejection letter arrived. Harvard, denied. Not for academics, not for lack of potential. The letter cited concerns about reliability and commitment. Marcus didn't need a detective to know who wrote that poison. Mr. Harrington. The man who'd never believed a black kid from the South Side belonged at Harvard. That night, Grandma Elise suffered one of her worst episodes yet. She recoiled from him, screaming as he tried to give her her medication. "Grandma, it's me, Marcus." Her cries pierced the thin walls, summoning Mrs. Jenkins, the neighbor who'd known him since diapers. She stood in the doorway, baseball bat in hand, eyes darting with suspicion. "Everything okay in there, Loretta?" Marcus lowered his head. "It's fine. Grandma's just having a rough night." Even people who knew him still saw danger before they saw him. The next day, another blow. The grocery store where he worked weekends was shutting down. Mr. Chen, the owner, looked apologetic but helpless. "A developer bought the block, Marcus. Luxury condos, 30 days and we're gone. I'm sorry." His chest tightened. No scholarship, no job, no income. Jamal cornered him later. "Look, man, I got away. Just help my cousin move packages. $500 a weekend easy. Nobody checks what's in the bags." Marcus didn't need a crystal ball. It was the same path that landed Dion in prison. He shook his head. "Nah, not me." But the seed was planted. At dinner, Zora's face lit up as she waved her acceptance letter. "MIT Summer Science Program. All expenses paid." Then her voice faltered. "Well, except the flight to Boston?" Loretta's proud smile dimmed. "Baby, with Marcus's scholarship gone and me picking up shifts for Grandma's meds, I don't know if we can—" "It's fine, Mom," Zora said quickly, forcing a grin. "Maybe next year." But Marcus saw the light flicker in her eyes. Later that night, Jamal's text hit his phone like temptation itself. Offer still open. 1 weekend equals Zora's ticket. Just saying. The next morning, their landlord cornered him in the hall, eviction notice in hand. "Your mom's late again, kid. I've been patient, but new management wants everybody out. Renovations, higher rent. You've got weeks, not months." At school, he found his locker defaced with a racial slur, bold black marker across the dented metal. When he reported it, the vice principal sighed. "Without witnesses, there's nothing we can do. Perhaps you misremembered your combination. Someone could have been frustrated trying to get in." Marcus's jaw locked. "It's my locker. My name's on the sheet. And that word doesn't come from frustration." The man shuffled papers, avoiding eye contact. "Let's not make mountains out of molehills, Mr. Washington. You're graduating soon anyway. Mountains, molehills, as if hate could be measured in inches." Walking home through the rain, Marcus passed Calvert Tower, the place Margaret Callaway had been searching for the night everything unraveled. On impulse, he walked in. "Can I help you?" the lobby guard sneered. His tone made clear help wasn't on the menu. "I'm here to see Mrs. Margaret Callaway." The guard smirked. "Sure you are. Mrs. Callaway doesn't take unscheduled visitors, especially not—" He stopped himself, but the unspoken word hung heavy in the air. Then luck, or fate, cracked the door open. Bradford Callaway swept in with his entourage of suits, every inch the prince of privilege. Marcus stepped forward quickly. "Mr. Callaway, I'm Marcus Washington. I helped your grandmother when she was lost downtown. I just wanted to know if she's okay." Bradford barely glanced at him. "Ah, yes. The scholarship applicant. She mentioned you. She's fine. Thank you." He gestured. "Security, please escort him out." As they grabbed his arms, Bradford smirked over his shoulder. "For what it's worth, your application was never in serious contention. The Callaway Scholarship is for exceptional candidates, people who show more than basic decency." The words sliced deeper than rejection. Marcus was dumped on the sidewalk, humiliation boiling in his chest, watching Bradford laugh through the glass. That night his phone buzzed, unknown number. "Marcus, it's Margaret Callaway. I've been trying to reach you. Letters, emails. Bradford assured me he was handling it. Are you avoiding me, dear? Marcus blinked. Mrs. Callaway, I never got anything. All I received was my rejection letter. Silence. Then sharp and tight. I see. It seems my grandson has been managing more than I realized. Marcus, we need to meet. Tomorrow. The next morning, Marcus packed his mother's lunch, jerk chicken with rice, her favorite, as she got ready for her second shift. Something on your mind, baby? Loretta asked, catching his distracted look. Just bills, he lied. He wouldn't dangle hope in front of her until he knew it was real. After she left, Marcus headed to meet Dion's parole officer. The man showed up an hour late, clipboard in hand, never looking Marcus in the eye. Family support is critical, the officer droned. But with your brother's record, don't get your hopes up. Marcus bit down on the truth. That Dion's record was a single mistake. A misdemeanor turned felony because he was poor and black. But saying it aloud would only hurt his brother. He signed the forms in silence. On his way to Margaret, he passed the Callaway Foundation's community center in Hyde Park, the words carved in stone over polished glass. Opening doors through education. Marcus stared at the building, the words, the lie. His dream had drowned in a gutter while their doors stayed shut. The irony gnawed at Marcus like a bad joke. An institution supposedly built to lift kids like him had turned into just another velvet rope, charity dressed up in a tuxedo but guarding the same old doors. Margaret waited for him at an upscale cafe near Calvert Tower. The woman he'd saved from the rain was barely recognizable. Gone was the frail, disoriented figure. In her place sat a woman sharpened to a point. Elegant coat, pearls gleaming, eyes like scalpels. I owe you an apology, Marcus, she said, her tone smooth but edged. Bradford has been intercepting my communications. Shielding me, he called it. Controlling me is more accurate. Marcus blinked. Why? Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her cup. I've been unwell. Early-stage Parkinson's. Bradford convinced the board I needed to step back. Marcus thought of his grandmother, Elise. I get it. My grandma's battling dementia. Margaret's gaze cut him off. I don't have cognitive decline, young man. I have a motor disorder. Big difference. Bradford blurred that line to make me irrelevant. That spine of steel surprised Marcus. She wasn't just wealthy, she was still a fighter. The foundation was my husband's legacy, she continued. Edward came from nothing. He built this to give kids like you doors that wouldn't slam in their faces. But look, she slid a tablet across. 5 years ago, 43% of recipients were students of color. Last year, 9. This year, 1. And he's a donor's son. Marcus stared at the numbers, unshaken. No offense, Mrs. Callaway, but that's the world. People like me can get perfect grades, perfect portfolios, and still lose to a rigged deck. Margaret leaned forward, eyes burning. That doesn't make it acceptable. We didn't build this to uphold the system. We built it to crack it open. His eyes drifted to the vintage Leica camera tucked in her bag. She caught him looking. You have a good eye. It was Edward's first professional camera. I carry it to feel close to him. Something about that simple human act disarmed Marcus more than her power. And when she mentioned Edward's love of jazz, Marcus smiled. My dad was a vinyl man, Marcus said softly. I inherited his collection. Her eyes lit. Coltrane? A Love Supreme, original pressing. Southside Record Shop before it closed. Margaret's smile carried memory. Edward would have liked you. He believed music and photography were windows into truth, a way of seeing past appearances. Maybe that's why you built the foundation? Marcus asked. Her expression hardened. Edward grew up poor. White, yes, but Appalachian poor. He knew locked doors. He wanted to keep them open for others. Bradford has betrayed that vision. Marcus leaned back, skeptical. "So what can you do about it?" "More than Bradford thinks," she replied smoothly. "I'd like to offer you a job. My assistant. Someone outside his reach. Someone who stops to help strangers when it's pouring and everyone else is too busy saving their own shoes." The job meant rent paid, Zora's ticket funded, college within reach. He studied her, wary. "Why me? You don't even know me." Margaret set down her teacup with deliberate weight. "Character reveals itself in moments of inconvenience. You sacrificed your dream portfolio for a stranger. That tells me more about you than any resume." Before Marcus could respond, a storm arrived in a suit. Bradford. His jaw was tight enough to crack glass. "Grandmother, we've been searching everywhere. Your doctor's appointment was an hour ago." Margaret's chin rose. "I don't have an appointment today, Bradford. I'm interviewing Marcus for a position." Bradford's mask slipped. For a split second, raw contempt flared as his eyes flicked to Marcus. "That's out of the question. The board would never approve." "The board doesn't approve my staff." Margaret cut him off. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "And since I still own the majority of Callaway Enterprises, neither do you." The cafe seemed to hold its breath. Bradford's smile reassembled itself, tight and poisonous. "Of course. I'm only concerned for your welfare. There's nothing to discuss. Marcus starts Monday." When he slithered away, Margaret turned to Marcus, her tone grave. "Understand. By saying yes, you're making an enemy of a very powerful man. Bradford doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget." Marcus thought of Loretta's aching feet, Dion's prison bars, Zora's suspended dreams, and his own ruined scholarship. Then he looked Margaret dead in the eye. "With all due respect, Mrs. Callaway, men like Bradford have been against me my whole life. At least this time, the fight comes with a paycheck." Margaret's smile returned. This time, proud. "One more thing." She slid an envelope across the table. Inside, a non-disclosure agreement, standard, but clipped to it, a Harvard acceptance letter, his name printed clear and sharp. Marcus's breath caught. "I made a few calls," Margaret said softly. "Your record speaks for itself. Tuition is covered. Out of my pocket. Not the foundation." Bradford couldn't touch that letter. Not this time. Marcus stared at it. Harvard stamped across the page like destiny, finally remembering his name. Words failed him. His hands shook, part disbelief, part fury at how close he'd come to losing everything to a rigged system. "Your kindness cost you your dream," Margaret said, her voice softer now. "All I did was give back what should have been yours all along, but the job offer still stands. I don't just want you, Marcus. I need you." That night, at the small, wobbly dinner table in their South Side apartment, Marcus laid out the letter and offer. His mother, Loretta, read it once and wept silently, her tired shoulders trembling. Zora screamed with joy, bouncing like she'd won the lottery herself. Even Grandma Elise, usually lost in fog, reached over and squeezed his hand with startling clarity. "I knew," she whispered. "I always knew you'd find a way." Marcus nearly broke at that. His father's ghost was alive in her voice. Later, pulling off his shirt in the dim bedroom light, Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Congratulations on Harvard and the new job. Enjoy them while they last." B. The threat was naked. The signature, -B, made it obvious. Bradford wasn't hiding, he was circling. But instead of fear, Marcus felt something he hadn't in weeks: resolve. Bradford had inherited money and privilege. Marcus had inherited struggle and knew how to weaponize it. As he walked past Grandma Elise's door, her soft murmurs reached him, talking to herself again. But tonight, her words pierced like prophecy. "They think kindness is weakness," she muttered. "That's how you know they've never needed it." Marcus froze, then nodded to himself. She was right. Bradford mistook compassion for fragility. That mistake was going to cost him. He placed the Harvard letter on his desk beside his father's framed photo. The man had built houses until the day a scaffold gave way. Marcus touched the glass. "I'll finish what you started, Dad." 3 weeks later, trouble came knocking. While organizing Margaret's correspondence, Marcus found a string of intercepted legal letters, concerns from the Foundation's attorneys about plummeting diversity numbers and potential charter violations. Bradford had buried them. "This is worse than I thought," Margaret whispered, her hands trembling slightly but her eyes sharp as glass. "He isn't just corrupting the mission, he's breaking the law." They dove into the Foundation's digital archives, using her executive credentials. What they uncovered made Marcus's stomach churn. Bradford had siphoned money meant for scholarships into vanity projects and shell organizations tied to his rich friends. Marcus's jaw tightened. "This isn't policy manipulation, it's theft. He's embezzling from a foundation that was built for kids like me." Margaret's face hardened. "It's his character too. Bradford's always been entitled. I didn't think he'd go this far. Betraying his grandfather's legacy? That's unforgivable." Their digging was cut short by the sound of the office door creaking open. Bradford strolled in unannounced, his smirk practiced, his stare a blade aimed straight at Marcus. "The quarterly board meeting has been moved up," he said. "Tomorrow morning, instead of next week." Margaret's brow arched. "That's unusually short notice." Bradford's grin widened. "Several members had conflicts. I took the liberty of resolving them." When he left, the silence crackled with tension. Margaret leaned in, her voice low. "He knows. This meeting is his preemptive strike." That night, Marcus's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. $50,000. Cash. Walk away from Callaway. Tonight. Midnight deadline. B. Marcus stared at the digits. 50,000. Enough to clear debts, move his family out of their rundown apartment, buy Zora the education she deserved. The kind of money that could buy peace, at least for a while. He showed Margaret. She wasn't surprised. "Bradford is testing you," she said. "He believes everyone has a price." Marcus thought about it long and hard. About rent overdue. About his mother's tired eyes. About Zora's deferred dreams. And then about the acceptance letter with his name, bought back from the ashes. He shook his head. "I don't have a price. Not for doing the right thing." Margaret's smile was proud, almost maternal. "I was hoping you'd say that, because I've made a decision." She reached into her desk drawer, pulled out a slim recorder, and pressed play. Bradford's voice slithered into the room, condescending, manipulative, claiming she was cognitively impaired. She had recorded everything. "I've been documenting his moves for months," she said. "The lies, the gaslighting, the fraud. With your help, we can finally expose him." Marcus leaned back, heart pounding. For the first time in his life, the fight wasn't just for his survival. It was a war to burn down the system that had tried to smother him. And Marcus was ready to bring the fire. "She's also been gathering evidence," Margaret whispered the night before, eyes like steel. "Tomorrow, I'm calling for a vote of no confidence. Bradford will be finished." Marcus left her penthouse with hope burning like a small flame inside him. But as soon as he hit the street, a sleek black Mercedes purred up to the curb. The tinted window rolled down, and Bradford's smug face appeared. "Get in, Washington. We need to talk." Marcus kept walking. "I'll pass." "She's using you," Bradford called after him, voice smooth as poison. "My grandmother collects strays, charity projects. When she's done, she tosses them aside." Marcus stopped cold, then turned slowly. "Is that what happened to you?" For a split second, Bradford's face cracked. Rage slipped through. Then the mask snapped back. "You think you know her? You don't know anything. My grandfather built Callaway Enterprises from nothing. My father expanded it. I was born to lead it. Then she decided to give it all away to..." Charity. Not charity, Marcus shot back. Opportunity. For kids like me. That's what your grandfather wanted. I've read the charter. He grew up poor in Appalachia. He knew struggle. That's why he built the foundation. Bradford's jaw tightened. The mask was gone now, replaced by naked contempt. My final offer. 100 grand. Tonight. Take it or regret the day you crossed me. The car pulled away, taillights glowing like devil eyes. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. A breaking news alert. Margaret Callaway, 78, hospitalized after fall at home. Marcus's chest clenched. He sprinted to Chicago Memorial. At the ICU desk, a nurse blocked his way. Family only, he argued, desperate until movement caught his eye. Bradford, standing outside Margaret's room, whispering with a doctor like they were co-conspirators. When Bradford saw him, he strolled over, satisfaction dripping from every step. Unfortunate news, Bradford said, his voice mock somber. Severe confusion. Possible stroke. The doctors say she's not competent to make decisions. As her only living relative, I'll be assuming power of attorney immediately. He handed Marcus an envelope like it was a death sentence. You're terminated. Security will escort you out. Through the glass, Marcus glimpsed Margaret, awake, thrashing weakly, trying to speak. A nurse adjusted her IV, ignoring her. Marcus's gut screamed, something's wrong. The next morning, his access to Callaway Tower was revoked. His company email and phone wiped clean. It was as if he'd never existed. When he called Margaret's private number, a hospital administrator answered instead. She's been moved to a private facility. Location undisclosed. Mr. Callaway has assumed all authority over her care. Marcus's rage boiled. Just yesterday, she'd been sharp enough to dissect balance sheets line by line. This wasn't illness. This was a coup. Back at the apartment, he sat at the kitchen table updating his resume. His mother hovered. Baby, what happened? I thought things were finally turning around. Marcus stared at the glowing rejection of reality on his screen. It didn't work out, Mom. Politics. Loretta's voice dropped low, steady. Politics is just another word for people abusing power. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before he could answer, a knock rattled the door. 2 detectives stood in the hallway, badges flashing. Marcus Washington? The woman asked. Yes? We need to ask you some questions about unauthorized access to Callaway Foundation accounts and missing funds. Loretta paled. My son hasn't stolen a dime in his life. The male detective's face was stone. We have evidence of a transfer. $247,000. Offshore account. Initiated under your login. Marcus's stomach dropped. That's impossible. I never had access to foundation accounts. You can explain that downtown, the detective replied. At the station, the trap snapped fully shut. They laid it out cold, not only embezzlement charges, but also a restraining order. Bradford had filed claims that Marcus was stalking his grandmother, manipulating her, scheming to alter her will. The detective leaned in, his tone cutting. Do you understand how this looks? A young man ingratiates himself with a wealthy elderly woman, gains access, transfers money, right before she's hospitalized. Marcus clenched his fists so hard his nails cut skin. Bradford hadn't just stripped him of opportunity. He'd painted him as every stereotype the world already half believed. And now, Marcus realized, his fight wasn't just for Harvard. It was for his freedom. The DA was already whispering the word everyone fears: felony. Through the two-way mirror, Marcus watched Bradford glide into the precinct like a man bringing flowers to a funeral. Polished, upset, perfectly practiced in the role of worried grandson. He conferred with detectives with the calm of someone who'd rehearsed this scene 1,000 times. Marcus felt the room tilt. His public defender arrived breathless and overworked, sympathy wearing thin from too many impossible cases. She laid the cards on the table, digital logs, IP traces, witnesses saying he'd been obsessed with the Callaway fortune. Bradford had offered a bargain, dropped charges if Marcus signed a confession, and agreed never to contact Mrs. Callaway again. "I didn't do this," Marcus said, raw. "Mrs. Callaway was investigating Bradford. He's framing me to hide what he's doing." The lawyer's shoulders tightened. "That's a serious accusation against one of Chicago's most prominent citizens. Do you have proof?" Marcus's mind sprinted through every document and recording he and Margaret had pulled up, all stored on servers Bradford now controlled. The recorder Margaret had mentioned, on her phone, her computer, behind his reach. "Nothing I can get to," he admitted. "Then I strongly suggest you consider the deal," the lawyer said bluntly. "First-time offender, you might get probation instead of prison." Marcus thought about Dion, who'd taken a plea for a lesser sentence, swallowed humiliation for a sliver of freedom. He heard the bargain's shape: sign away the truth to keep your life from collapsing. Was this how the cycle repeated itself? Bail drained Loretta's savings. He came home to an eviction notice nailed to their door. 72 hours to vacate. The landlord's patience had finally run out. That night, Zora crawled into Marcus's bed like when thunder kept them awake as kids. Her small voice was steady. "You didn't do it. It's not a question." "No," Marcus said. She squeezed his side. "Then we'll prove it." "It's not that simple," he warned. "People like Bradford don't lose to people like us. That's what they want you to believe." "But Mrs. Callaway believed in you, and so do I." Zora's fierce, unwavering faith landed like a gauntlet thrown. Marcus hugged her until both of them breathed easier. The next morning broke like paper. Harvard rescinds acceptance. The restored dream was ripped again, this time with university lawyers citing a pending criminal investigation. The universe seemed to be closing its doors one by one. They packed with the mechanical quiet of a family who'd learned to move on command. They would go to his aunt's, smaller, tighter, but safe for now. Then Marcus's phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Marcus, Dr. Ella Chen. Something is very wrong. Bradford won't let me see Mrs. Callaway. Meet me at Carter Park, 3 p.m. Come alone." He showed Loretta. She read it twice, then met his eyes. It might be a trap, or it might be the truth trying to find a way out. Sometimes one person speaking up is all it takes. She crossed herself with a look that was both prayer and command. "If you go, you bring the truth back with you." He went. Marcus arrived 30 minutes early, scanning every face, every car. Bradford had proven he could manufacture disasters. At exactly 3 hours, Dr. Ella Chen appeared. Compact, no nonsense, eyes that had seen too many privileged lies. "Margaret Callaway does not have dementia or stroke damage," she said without preamble. "I've been her physician for 15 years. Bradford has had her heavily sedated at Lakeside Wellness under a doctor who is bought and paid for by Callaway money. He's restricting visitors. He's trying to make her legally incompetent." "Can you get me in?" Marcus asked. Dr. Chen shook her head. "Not without a court order, and even then, Bradford's influence runs deep. That's not why I texted." She handed him a small leather case. Inside, an antique key and a folded slip of paper in Margaret's precise script. "Storage Unit 47, Secure Holdings, Michigan Avenue." A short note: "If anything happens, wait 72 hours and then use this." She gave this to me the day you started," Dr. Chen said. "If they silenced her, this is her insurance." Within the hour, Marcus stood before a climate-controlled unit. The key turned with a soft, satisfying click. Inside, beneath wrapping paper and a shoebox, sat Margaret's Leica. He lifted it gently. It looked like the camera she'd described, but something was off. The casing was slightly heavier. There was a tiny seam where none should be. When he clicked the shutter, a faint red LED winked to life. The camera wasn't just a camera. Someone had modified it to record. Marcus felt a jolt of cold clarity. This was Margaret's proof. Visual, undeniable. If he could get those files out from whatever device stored them, if they still existed, they would not only clear his name but expose Bradford's whole operation. He closed the storage door softly, the sound of metal a promise. The game had changed. The frame was exposed for what it was, a deliberate, surgical attempt to erase a truth and manufacture a lie. And Marcus, who had been shoved into the smallest box the world could build, had just found a way out. The Leica wasn't just clever, it was genius. Hidden inside a custom compartment, Marcus found a memory card so small it looked like an afterthought. But when he plugged it into a battered desktop at a downtown internet cafe, Margaret Callaway's brilliance came roaring to life. Video after video unfolded. Bradford, whiskey glass in hand, sneering as he bragged about rigging scholarships based on race, hand-picking acceptable candidates to protect the Callaway brand. Bradford, whispering to the CFO, plotting to siphon foundation funds into shell companies. Bradford, instructing his assistant to bury Marcus's scholarship application before it ever reached the board. Bradford in Margaret's penthouse on the night of her fall, arguing with her, pacing like a trapped animal, and then the push. Clear as day. Margaret crumpling. Bradford standing over her, face twisted with panic. Marcus's stomach clenched. It was all there. Not just corruption, violence. Proof of a man willing to destroy anyone, even his own blood, to protect his power. He copied the files into a secure cloud account with trembling hands. Then he called Dr. Chen. I have him on tape. Everything. The money, the fraud, him drugging her, even the push. But he has framed me so tight no one is going to believe my word over his. You don't need belief, Dr. Chen said evenly. You need leverage and allies with real power. Marcus's mind raced. The board meeting. Has it happened yet? Tomorrow morning. Bradford postponed it, claiming Margaret needed a full medical assessment before decisions could be made. Marcus's jaw set. Then that's where this ends. Dr. Chen leaned forward, her voice cutting like glass. If you walk in there, Bradford will have security crush you before you hit the lobby. But me? I'm still Margaret's physician of record. I can demand the floor. You give me the evidence. The truth gets out. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt hope burning through the fear. We do this together. There was still one more card to play. Marcus scrolled through his contacts and found the number. Aisha Johnson, Tribune reporter. Dogged, fearless, and already on Bradford's radar for her searing critiques of corporate philanthropy. He offered her the story of a lifetime, corruption at the heart of one of Chicago's most powerful families. The next morning, the Callaway Foundation board gathered in their mahogany-paneled conference room. Bradford was electric with confidence. His grandmother silenced. Marcus erased, his hands on the wheel at last. He even wore his grandfather's platinum watch, gleaming like a crown jewel, a symbol of the legacy he was moments away from sealing. Dr. Chen requested to speak. Bradford pounced instantly. She has no standing. She no longer... A voice cut him down like a blade. My doctor speaks with my full authority. The room fell silent. Margaret Callaway stood in the doorway, pale but resolute, leaning on Marcus for support. Her eyes, sharp, unforgiving, sliced through her grandson like a courtroom verdict. The board gasped, Bradford's face drained of color. Grandmother, you should be resting. Your condition, my condition, Margaret said icily, is righteous anger, nothing more. Dr. Chen stepped forward, clinical and calm. Margaret has been sedated without cause by a physician tied to Bradford Callaway. Once the medication was reduced, she signed new documents revoking his power of attorney. Gasps, murmurs, a storm rolling across the polished table. Margaret nodded to Marcus. Show them. He connected a laptop to the boardroom's massive display. With one key stroke, the walls themselves became witnesses. Bradford's voice filled the air, sneering about race, scheming with CFOs, plotting his grandmother's downfall. Then the final scene. The shove. The silence in the boardroom turned to ice. Bradford lunged for the exit, but two uniformed security guards blocked him, arms folded, waiting. "This is a setup!" Bradford screamed, face contorted. "He manipulated those recordings. None of this is real." But the board wasn't looking at Marcus anymore. They were looking at Bradford, the mask ripped away, the empire of lies collapsing in real time. And Marcus? He stood beside Margaret, shoulders squared, finally not as the kid who Dee begged for a seat at the table, but as the man who brought the truth crashing through the doors. Bradford's finger jabs at Marcus like a dagger. "This street kid has poisoned her mind, twisted my grandmother against her own blood, all for money." Margaret steps forward, her cane clicking against the polished floor. Her voice, cold and sharp, cuts through the boardroom like a verdict. "Blood? Let me tell you about blood, Bradford." The room stills. "Your grandfather was born to a black mother and a white father in 1937 Mississippi. He passed as white because he had to, because survival demanded it. But he never forgot where he came from, or the doors slammed in the faces of those who could not hide their heritage." A ripple of gasps spreads across the table. Margaret's gaze pins her grandson in place. "Why do you think he built this foundation around minority scholarships? Why do you think our charter forbids discrimination? Bradford, you've spent years dismantling your grandfather's attempt to correct the injustices he carried in his bones. You've betrayed him, me, and your own heritage." Bradford stares, jaw slack, skin pale as paper. "No, that's a lie. Grandfather was white. Father was white. I am white." "You," Margaret says softly, with the weight of history, "are a quarter black. Your father buried that truth to embrace only privilege. But Edward Callaway left me his instructions and his burden, so this foundation could honor all of who he was." Silence grips the room like a storm about to break. Marcus cues the final recording. On the screen, Edward Callaway, frail but resolute, addresses the foundation board years earlier. "My fortune was built on the accident of appearance. I passed as white, but my blood carries the story of both worlds. This foundation is my attempt to extend the privilege I enjoyed to those who never had the choice. That is my legacy." When the screen fades to black, the board chair exhales heavily. His voice shakes, but is firm. "Bradford Callaway, in light of this evidence, I call for an immediate vote of no confidence and the referral of all matters to federal authorities." The vote is swift, unanimous. Bradford's empire collapses in a single breath. 3 months later. Marcus Washington walks across Harvard Yard, his backpack slung casually, still half in disbelief. The dream that once slipped through his fingers now feels solid, real. The charges against him? Dropped. Bradford, faced with the recordings, confessed to framing Marcus as part of a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison, elder abuse, fraud, embezzlement. The headlines were everywhere. Aisha Johnson's exposé not only toppled Bradford, but sparked a national investigation into discrimination in philanthropy. Marcus's phone buzzes. A video call, Zora grinning wide in her MIT summer program tee. "How's my favorite Harvard man?" she teases. Marcus laughs, turning his phone to show the ivy-covered buildings. "Still getting used to it? How's MIT treating you?" "I'm in the advanced track. Dr. Rivera says I've got exceptional aptitude for biomedical engineering." She smirks, but her eyes soften. "Mom wanted me to remind you about Sunday dinner. Margaret's coming." Marcus smiles. Since the showdown, Margaret has been more than an ally. She's become family. She helped secure them a new apartment, set up a trust for Zora's education, and fought to reform sentencing laws. which led to Dion's early release and his record cleared. "Tell Mom I wouldn't miss it," Marcus replies, "and tell Dion I'm saving the heavy boxes for him." They hang up, and Marcus walks into his advisory meeting with Dr. Richardson, chair of neurology. From the hall, he overhears whispers. The Washington boy. Compelling story. Perfect academics. Another diversity admit? "Hardly," Richardson snaps back. "He earned his place, and if his essay is any indication, he'll make us proud." Marcus straightens his shoulders and steps inside with the kind of confidence that didn't exist 6 months ago. "Marcus," Dr. Richardson greets warmly, "I was just telling my colleague about your interest in neurodegenerative disease research. We have an opening in our lab. It comes with a stipend. Not much, I'm afraid. Most students still rely on family support." "That won't be a problem," Marcus says steadily. "I've been named co-chair of the Callaway Foundation's new medical research initiative. Part of our mission is to support students developing treatments for conditions impacting underserved communities." Richardson's eyes brighten. "Then, Mr. Washington, it seems you're exactly where you're meant to be." Marcus takes the seat, no longer the kid begging for a chance, but the man rewriting a legacy. Dr. Richardson's brows arch, impressed. "That's unusual for a first-year undergraduate." Marcus chuckles, calm but with a confidence sharpened by fire. "So, was everything else that happened this year, Doctor? But Mrs. Callaway? She taught me something. Responsibility shouldn't go to the one with the prettiest resume. It belongs to the one who's proven character." When he steps out of the office, the hallway feels brighter, almost cinematic. He notices a bulletin board and freezes. His own face stares back at him from the center of a glossy feature on Harvard's incoming class. 6 months ago, he was fighting just to exist in a system designed to erase him. Now, he's not just visible, he's undeniable. His phone buzzes, a text from Margaret. "Board approved your proposal unanimously. The Edward Callaway Memorial Scholarship for Neurological Research is officially funded. Well done, Co-Chair Washington." Marcus exhales, his smile slow and steady. Sometimes the real reward for kindness isn't just getting what you deserve. It is creating a world where others can too. 5 years later, the Callaway Foundation headquarters gleams like a cathedral of glass and steel, reborn after years of corruption and secrecy. At the podium stands Marcus Washington, 23 years old, sharp suit, presence commanding the room. The youngest executive director in the foundation's history. "When I was 17, Marcus begins, his voice steady but rich with weight, "I thought kindness was a detour from success. What I've learned is that it's the most direct path." The crowd of scholarship recipients and families listens, rapt. In the front row, Loretta, his mother, radiant, now in nursing school. Elise, his grandmother, stabilized thanks to new treatment protocols Marcus helped pioneer. Dion, his brother, running the Second Chance initiative for the formerly incarcerated. Zora, his sister, already a force at MIT with 3 patents before graduation. And beside them sits Margaret Callaway, cane in hand, but eyes sharp, proud, and unyielding. Their glance locks, her slight nod telling Marcus everything. The legacy is secure. Marcus spreads his hands to the diverse group of students before him. "Today, you're not just receiving financial support. You're inheriting a challenge to measure your success not just by what you achieve, but by who you lift on the way up." The room erupts in applause, but Marcus doesn't bask in it. His eyes glimmer with the gravity of the moment. For him, this isn't a victory lap, it's a promise. Did Marcus's journey move you? Did his fight for justice and redemption strike something deep inside you? Then don't just watch, act. Subscribe to Fate Tales, where every story is carved out of struggle, lit by resilience, and crowned with triumph. Every week, we bring you raw, authentic stories of survival, courage, and the kind of victories that rewrite destinies. Your voice matters, your story matters, and together we archive not just tales, but history. Fate Tales. Because when one person refuses to be erased, the world is forced to remember.